Hello my friends. I'm going to share with you today a recipe that's been in my family for a long time. It's been handed down from my grandmother, and it's kind of been a family secret, but I'm sure there's a lot similar. The recipe is for making pierogies, or as my mother would say, Perohi. And it's a fairly simple recipe, but the ratio of the ingredients is very important. And if you get the ratios right, it makes it very easy to work. Okay, you need to make a filling, and you also need to make the dough. And you can do some of the things a day ahead, so you don't have to do them all at once. I'm going to do everything today, so right now I have potatoes boiling, getting ready for making the filling. Okay, now to make the dough, of course I always use organic. We're using organic flour. The ingredients, or the ratio, we have 6 cups of organic flour, so that's already measured out. And then you want to mix 2 teaspoons of salt, and I have that already mixed. And stir that up, mix the dry ingredients. Then we have 4 eggs. Get all the flour out. And again here I'm using organic eggs. The pierogies are one of the favorite food of the Ukrainians, and it's also one of the favorite foods where I grew up, which was McKees Rocks, right outside of Pittsburgh. And pierogies are so popular and well liked that they have built churches and cathedrals down there in McKees Rocks, and they also have become a mascot for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So if you ever watch the ball games, you'll see pierogies running around in the stands. Okay, then we need 1 stick of butter, and I have this softened, so pre-softened. Mix that, start mixing that in. And then the final ingredient is 1½ cups of water. This will make the ratio between the solids and the liquids just right. And the salt, I always use sea salt. This particular recipe will make 9 dozen. So usually when the old women in the churches would get together, they'd set up an assembly line, and they all had their own task that they would do. So where I'm living now, it's about an 1.5 to 2 hour drive to Pittsburgh area, and teachers that I know used to drive down to, teachers I worked with, would drive down to the McKees Rocks and just to buy pierogies from the churches, and they used to take orders from the other teachers. So I do have to admit that this is I don't know if it's a local food, but it's a food that we in our area just love eating. So not only will I show you how to make the pierogies, I'll show you how to cook them, and I'll show you how to eat some. Okay, once you get this stuff going, you can get your hands in there and start mixing it up. There you have it. Once you have it mixed up, let it sit and rest there for a while. To make the filling, we're making a potato filling. I just took the potatoes out of the water. We're going to mash them up. And I want to do this while it's hot because I'm going to add cheese, and I want the cheese to melt. So mash these first. We want a cup of cheddar cheese. I got a little extra because I like cheese. like the cheese flavor. My grandmother always used Longhorn, but I can't find Longhorn cheese anymore. So I don't know if they still make that cheese or not. And then about 1/3 of a cup of cream cheese. And some people like to add milk when they make a mashed potato, but we want this to be firm. We want to be able to roll this into a ball when we're done. So we're not using any milk in this. And we need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And that was a 1/2. Then we need about a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. You see how I'm measuring. You want a little bit of a pepper flavor in there. Pepper's going to make me sneeze. The potatoes, about 5 or 6. I had 5 potatoes, so that's what I was left with in my potato bin. So 5 potatoes. They were medium to large size. The filling is good to make a day ahead. That way you have time to let it cool, and then when you mix the dough up, you can be making those right away. So the dough is set, and it's not as sticky as it was when I first did it. You need to let it rest about 5 to 10 minutes. And then this filling, you should let this cool also. So I might stick this in the fridge to hurry it up. And when we would do the filling, at least when my grandmother would do the filling, she always did 2 batches of pierogies. And one was just potato, and the other one was a sauerkraut filling. As kids, we didn't like sauerkraut filling in pierogies. So actually we would spit them out if we bit one by mistake. So she had marked them when she would make them, when you seal them, so that she could identify which one had the sauerkraut in it. But if she missed one, they usually weren't consumed as a kid. But now I kind of favor the sauerkraut ones. Maybe that's an adult thing here. While everything is cooling, we can pay our attention to making the onions. Onions is a key ingredient to eating pierogies. So you really can't have too many onions, but the onions go with butter. So I have 3 onions left in my pantry, so we're going to cook them all. Again, this is making 9 dozen, so that's quite a few pierogies. The onions you want to dice very small. When you're dicing onions, leave the root stem together. That holds this half of an onion tight while you're doing the cutting. And that's going into the frying pan. I'm going to add some olive oil to keep butter from burning. And you add that much. You need lots of butter. I only have 1 stick left. Not enough butter. It'll do. You saute the onions until they just start caramelizing and maybe getting a little bit of crispiness to them. You want the onions to be translucent when you're done. This is cooked enough. It will be in the frying pan once again under heat when we're cooking the pierogies. So we turn the heat off and let it go. You can see here the dough. I powdered some flour on the entire surface, bottom and top, and we want to work this in quarters. when I roll this out, this will just about fill my cutting board here. And this is going to be our cutter. I use this little scooper to scoop out the potato filling. You can see how cheesy that is. And you need to have it about that size. And you want to stretch. Before you do that, you need to dampen the perimeter on the inside with water. Stretch, push, and right where it was wet, bonds real easy to itself. And just give it a little push, and there is the perfect pierogi. And what I do when you're making this, I have these plastic cutting boards. I give it a little powder like that, and because if you don't do that, it's going to kind of sweat and stick to the plastic, so you don't need that to happen. And because it's making 9 dozen, always freeze them first. And if you were going to cook them, you cook them fresh right as you make them, which will do some, but we have to make the pierogies first. This is where the assembly line comes in for all the old women at the church. Every one would have their specific job that they have to do. If you don't seal these, they come apart when you're cooking. So you want to make sure they get sealed. Then when I get all these made, I'll put them on a sheet of wax paper, then stick it in my freezer and freeze them that way. Once they're frozen solid, then you can stick them in a Ziploc bag and keep them for however long you can. But most likely you'll have those all eaten in a week or two. We're going to mix up the sauerkraut filling, and you have about 2 cups of sauerkraut and about a cup, about 2 to 1 of the potato filling. The potato is to kind of hold the sauerkraut together, makes it a little better consistency, and I'm just going to use my hands in on this. The sauerkraut, you want to squeeze all the juice out of it so it's dry. Okay, right there. That's going to get the filling, and I'm going to end up having to just pull it out like that. I can't use my nifty tool to do it, and we do these the same with the perimeter. Your filling, that might be a little too much. Arch it in there. Same thing, flour it. Now we need to identify it, so this is the method that gets done. That corrugation identifies it as being sauerkraut. When you're cooking pierogies, get a pot of water boiling, and whether they're freshly made or frozen, put them directly into the boiling water. And what you want to do is make sure you stir these or they're going to stick to the bottom. And you're going to cook these until they start floating. And after they float, cook about 5 to 10 minutes longer. Don't have to stir regularly, just make sure every once in a while that you move them. They're just starting to want to float. So when they get to the top, then we go about 5 to 10 minutes. Now I have the onions cooking, so we're going to go right from the pot into the skillet. And I have in the skillet, I have the butter and onions. I've already taken most of the onions out so that I can share them with the other batches that I have. And I made about 9 dozen. It comes out pretty accurate. That's a plate full. I don't think I can eat this much food, but they keep real well in the refrigerator, and I like eating these cold. If you cook them this way, you can make Mrs. T's taste good. So I don't like to make a comparison of my grandmother's pierogies to Mrs. T's, but can't compare them. These are good. Gotta try it. Took a couple hours to make 9 dozen, but you get a lot of meals. These are the last ones. I didn't freeze these. They freeze real well. You don't have to thaw them. You put them right into the boiling water. When they start floating, cook about 5 to 10 more minutes. Cook them in a skillet with your onions and lots of butter. Good luck on trying them. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.